Okay, I did it. Sorry about that. We're streaming live on YouTube and we're streaming live on Facebook. And I'm just going to give it a few more minutes for some of our members to trickle into Easy Webinar. If you want to join us live on Easy Webinar, that's where we manage all the chats and communication. And Deneen, are you there? Can you hear me? Did I do it?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you. Perfect.
Okay. Cool. Oh my gosh, this is really high camera. That's not going to work.
That's the hero shot.
Right? Oh,
That's so funny.
What? Let me change it. Change the settings. How's it going?
I'm living the dream. How are you?
Good.
Awesome. I see Emily's here. Hi, Emily.
Here we go. This is better, right?
Yes, that looks good. Sorry, Emily, I know you've said hi 2 times now.
Yeah, I've been having internet issues today. It's really annoying.
There's nothing worse.
Especially when you rely on it. I'm fuzzy. It's not coming in clear.
Have you been drinking?
Not yet. It's not Friday yet.
Yeah, you look pixelated.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah.
That's weird. I don't know which one's better. Let me.
I think the first one was preferable. Yeah, that looks better. And we've got about 60 seconds before go live. And today we're talking about how to nurture parents, correct?
Yeah. Although I'm much taller than you. You need to either sit up or I need to go down.
I can do that.
Okay, there we go. Perfect.
Oh, Beth's here too. Hi, Beth. Thanks for being here. We're just figuring out our tech stack. We're supposed to be techie folks, but you know how that goes.
No, that's on your plate. I'm the Montessori one.
You're a techie person now.
No.
You can deny it all you want, but
I'm trying. I'm trying to make it work.
Crossing over to the dark side. All right, it is 11:30, so I'm going to click record. Hello, Montessorians. Thank you so much for joining us for another session of our live weekly coaching calls. We're streaming live on YouTube, streaming live on Facebook, and of course, you can always join us live inside of Easy Webinar. Just go to nitomarketing.com/coaching, and then you get to sign up and ask us questions, engage with us via chat, etc. So for those of you that are here, thank you so much for being here. You make the conversation so much better. We do this every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. And here with me, of course, is our illustrious community manager, Deneen Goncalves, who's really the heart and soul of Nito. Deneen, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to have our conversation today. If we're talking about nurturing new parents and new families. And before I kind of start that conversation, what I want to help phrase is that, prior to nurturing our new parents, we also want to make sure we have in place, nurturing our prospects and helping them understand, what our school is about, what we offer, what makes Montessori different. So going back into, seeing what your admission processes are and smoothing those out will also be helpful to nurturing your new parents. But I'm not going to focus on that today, but I did want to just preface, what we will be talking about with that.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and in our Nito section or our member section, we have, a lot of resources for you in that. So make sure to look at that if you're interested in learning more.
Yeah, I was in our resources section yesterday, and it's overwhelming, the amount of stuff we have in there. We need to find a way to, I don't know what, but we've sort of like Montessori'd ourselves, right? Like it's like, here's all this value, and now we don't know how to articulate it. So it's like a meta problem. Here we are talking about this problem. We've created our own version of it inside of Nito Marketing.
Right. Well, and I think that's just a problem that many people struggle with. There's just a lot of information out there, and how to synthesize it to make it work for you. It's challenging. It is. So, looking at parents, let's think about our new parents, right? They've already enrolled in our school. They're excited. They're excited about being at your school, having your children there, and they are just ripe with information. They want information. They're hungry for it. So how do we respond to that hunger? And I want to talk about that today. But before I jump into that, Qasim, will you tell me a little bit about your experience as a new parent and maybe touch on that excitement around having your kids go to a Montessori school?
Yeah. So full disclosure, and I'll just cards on the table, and hopefully people don't pelt me with rotten fruit. But my kids went to a Montessori school at first, and that's because we didn't know any better. And honestly, maybe that's sort of helpful here. Here I am. I work with Montessori schools on a regular basis, and when we first started, this was before we launched Nido, but I'd known Matt for some time. We went to what we thought was kind of Montessori school, and they said that they had Montessori inspired principles was the way that they presented it, but it ended up just being kind of a glorified daycare. And I didn't know that I was under impressed, but I just, dropped my kid off. He came back. He was happy. He played. It was fine. And then there was an event that Deneen knows about, but I ended up taking my son out of that school. And then now, flash forward, I'd learned all this amazing stuff. I'd met Deneen. I'd worked with Montessori schools. So we went to the school where they are now, where both my children are enrolled. And it was overwhelming. Just the space. Like you walk into this space, and I knew what to expect, or I thought I did. And it was exactly as Matt always described it to me. I walked in and I'm like, oh, my son can't do this. Because I walk in and there's these little, 3 and 4 year olds, and they're sitting quietly, working on things intently. And my boy's just bouncing off the walls and throwing things and, lobbing glue. And in the classroom as we're touring, and I just, I'm like, all right, we'll see ourselves out. And I'd already heard Matt say those words, but it's so funny how what you know and what you feel don't always connect. And so I was overwhelmed by the environment. I was overwhelmed by the verbiage, the semantics, and the nomenclature. I couldn't speak properly to the school officials and associates, and I'm still really kind of intimidated by them. And we went and did our very first student as a teacher, and I'm talking too much, I'm so sorry, but we did our first student as a teacher, and even then, knowing everything that I know about Montessori, my son's showing me these things, and I'm just blown away. I'm watching him polish pennies and pour just liquid from one container to the other and explaining to me what he's doing, and he's walking around with stuff that I would never let him walk around with in my house, and I'm just constantly overwhelmed and so impressed. Yesterday he came home and he's talking about red blood cells and white blood cells and why they matter, and I don't know the information that he's giving me. I'm like, this is really interesting, I should Google it. So it's just so hard. It's hard as a parent. I don't know what's going on over there, and honestly, not to criticize the school because they're amazing, but they haven't done a good job at letting us know. I know they're doing amazing work, but they're not informing me of that. And so as far as other parents know, I'm because I'm here, I'm keenly interested. But as far as other parents know, it's just another daycare. It's just another Montessori because they haven't, or another Montessori because they haven't done a good job at articulating their value. They don't self-advocate very well. And I know that it's hard to do. There's a layer of humility that's required. But yeah, I'm sorry, Deneen, I went off on a tangent. How was that? Did that answer your question at all?
Yeah, well, it gave us some stories to learn because I think it's important to think about how our parents are experiencing their first couple weeks at our school and what that looks like. And I think those first couple weeks, couple months are so imperative to the long-term life of the family at the school. We have to catch those parents early on when they're a little bit confused, maybe a little bit uncomfortable and intimidated, and help bridge that gap to understand or to help them feel more connected. And that's really what I want to talk about today. It's just that connection to what we do, because you were saying you're noticing a lot of change in your son, and you've been there for a couple months, so you're kind of in that sweet spot for parents where you notice these things that they're just very different than what you've experienced at the other schools. So finding those moments to be able to kind of offer those connections, I want to talk about today. So yes, that was really helpful.
Good.
Yeah, so I think the first step would be to connect new families with their guides, right? So making sure that there is a direct connection to the guide, and that the guide is also making efforts to support the new families in understanding what's happening in the classroom. So a couple examples could be, have your guide send out an email the very first day that the family starts. Here's what your child is doing. Here's the connections he or she is making. And we're excited to see him again tomorrow. and just something super quick. And then at the end of the week, have another email connecting. Hey, I'd love to touch base with you, maybe even a phone call, just see how your first week has gone.
That was amazing. Yeah.
But just, engaging your guides to help them bridge that, anxiety that may be lying under the surface with families, which will, of course, help them along the way in parent conferences, because that relationship building is already there.
Can I add something to that, Danina? I'm about to upset my bounds because I don't belong in this space really. But as a parent, I can tell you one thing that I really wish I had is I want to know more about my guide. She's amazing. Her name's Brittany, and I know she loves my kid because I see him with her when he shows up in class. She's always very, very engaged, and she gets down and looks him in the eye. But it would have been awesome to get an email that, hey, I'm Brittany and I played collegiate soccer, and I like to watch the Flintstones or whatever. You know what I mean? Like something that just gives me a sense as to who this person is. And the other thing that it does is it kind of gives me permission to reach out to her directly. So instead of this transactional communicative relationship, if you just get an email saying, hey, I'm a real person and here's some stuff about me, now I just feel a little more comfortable. Oh, that's cool, I played soccer or whatever. Is that something you think schools can do, and is there value there?
Absolutely. I think we need to move away from the newsletter idea and not doing it, but also knowing that there's more that we could be doing. Because I think newsletters after a while just kind of end up being, background noise, or parents will just check it to see what events are coming up, or school closures. That's always one I'm like, oh, I gotta remember my child's not going to school tomorrow, those kind of things. And it's not an engagement tool. So having your guides connect directly with families, and that's more important and more effective when you're looking at relationship building.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good idea. Let's see what else. So, again, engaging your guide, but also your community. What kind of things can you offer to your parents that give them opportunities to engage with what you do? So let's say, for example, you've got new families at their child is 3. Those are your new families, mainly when new families are coming in. And you have an elementary program. Could you enlist the elementary program to, offer a parent coffee, and they're the ones that are actually running it? I'm sure they would love that, have a little cafe, and how amazing would that be as a new parent to see that, the 3 or 4 year old, or those children who are 3 or 4 years older than your child are doing this. Like, you can picture your child 3 or 4 years from now doing that. So some, connecting them to the community that is the life of your school, something like that.
I love that idea. I think that's great.
Yeah. And if you don't have an elementary community, maybe have your kindergartners do it. I'm sure they would also love it, because they're, on the cusp of first and second plane. They love that kind of stuff. So another thing, and I've been thinking about this, if we think about our parent cycle, and the new parents going to the experienced parents, and we relate that to how our classrooms are run. We've got new children and we've got older children. We have the older children support the younger children. Could we also have our experienced parents mentor or support our newer families, so that, you can help them along the way, answer any questions, and they also feel like, it's a little bit of an objective support system versus like the school. I think that might be another avenue that could be really helpful for parents to just feel like this is a place that they want. It's a home away from home. It's a place they want their child to be, and to be at for a long time.
I love that idea. We don't have any connection with any of our parental peers at our school, which we've gone to a couple, like they had a pizza day thing where you go to this pizza restaurant and anything that you buy, proceeds, some percentage of the proceeds go to the school, which is cool. And so we went to that thinking we were going to meet other parents. And all that really happened is you didn't know who was really there with the school and who was just there to be at the pizza place. And then everybody sat on their own anyway. So it'd be cool to orchestrate a situation where you kind of, even if it's not organic, you just sort of put the parents together and we have the opportunity to mingle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we're all really busy, right? And it's it's tricky, especially at drop off. You know, like you see people you want to connect with. It's it's hard to because their lives are busy. So if you could help parents have those opportunities to connect with other families there, then it starts to feel more like a community and less like a business, which is of course what we want our childcare settings to look like and be like.
We don't even see parents at drop off. Our school does Carline. Is that a Montessori thing, by the way, or is that just a thing?
Well, it may be a private school thing. I know that many Montessori schools I've been to do have something like Carline or drop off, but it's typically because they don't have buses.
Okay. But, what about private Facebook groups? Do you have any opinions on that?
I've seen them work really well. I think there's more fear around it than excitement because it's a little bit scary to kind of let parents run that. You don't necessarily know what they're going to post. I've been a part of them. I'm currently a part of the one at my son's school, and it's really nice and it's a mom's group, which is, it's really helpful because we can talk about all things mom. So I'm a fan of it. I think, we've got some stuff in our members section that helps people figure out the guidelines and push guidelines around how to communicate, how to, kind of filter your responses and whatnot. But I think it's a good idea. I still don't think it matches, though, that face-to-face interaction. I don't think it should replace it. I think, having that connection face-to-face is much more effective.
I don't think places at all, but I think what it could do is help bridge gaps, kind of catalyze it, because then it's like, oh, hey, you and I chatted about the thing on the Facebook group, but it just gives us something to talk about and sort of another, strand in the fabric that is our relationship. Because meeting new people is just hard, and then meeting new parents is harder because it's a really sensitive context. And I don't even if we're not acutely aware of this, one of the things I think about sometimes is like, well, what if my kid does something? You know what I mean? Like I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page and team as everybody, because, you could end up in a situation where you're now in a combative environment and you want to make a good impression always. And maybe not everybody's as neurotic as me, and maybe not everybody thinks that way, but I think some people do sometimes, and so it's just how do we put us together enough to where you start to be comfortable with folks? Did that make any sense, or did I just?
No, I think it's important to think about, how parents interact. I mean, there's this huge wave now of information about what introverts are versus extroverts, and that this is definitely an extroverted world. And I tend to be more of an extrovert, so a lot of the things that I talk about are, like, we should socialize and we should talk, and not everybody operates that way. So having multiple avenues, I think, for depending on what type of parents you are, can be helpful, because then what is comfortable for you and what you can engage with, and that it doesn't feel like you're forced into something that you don't want to do, which of course sometimes is for everybody.
It's awesome. And Emily just came in saying we do Carline, which is good to know.
Yeah. Emily, when you do Carline, do you feel like it's just a quick drop and run? Do you feel like maybe there's some missed opportunities there for engagement with your families? And while you're chatting in, I know a couple schools have had, parent coffees, which have been well attended. People enjoy that, and it's usually right after Carline. So like you drop your kid off, and then 5 minutes later, the coffee chat will start.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I think Matt does it at his school. I know our school does it. It's well attended.
Yeah,
it's usually on a Friday.
Feed the addiction.
All right, Ellie says, we have to be really careful. Parents will try to take the time to mini conference. Yes, we have to be clear. That is, yes, parents will definitely find any time to chat about their child. I actually found this interesting too. If your guides live in the same community that your school is in, they will find you at the grocery store, and they'll find you at the coffee shop, and then quickly conversations that are casual will turn into a mini conference as well. So I think preparing your staff for that knowing, some quick exit strategies, helping them understand that you can't be talking about your child in a grocery store. That's not appropriate. But also helping your parents understand that, this is not the time for a mini conference, and preparing yourself to respond in a way where it's like, I'd love to talk more about this. Why don't we schedule a time? Shoot me an email, or I can call you later today and we can schedule a time. But just having a quick exit is a good thing to prepare yourself with.
I'm just picturing Montessori and throwing like one of those balls of smoke, from the cartoons, and all of a sudden you're just gone.
Melissa chimed in. She said, we do drop-offs as well, but if there was an issue, they made a point to come to the car with the child and let you know what's going on, good or bad. Yes, indeed. And Emily wrote, I don't consider it a missed opportunity, but encourage something personal to be shared. Perfect. I know my screen is really small, so I'm like, maybe.
What about Calendly for guides? Am I going too far? Like if parents had the ability to schedule time with guides, it gives you that escape hatch. It's like, hey, I'm so sorry I can't talk about this right now. I want to give you the attention that it deserves. As you can always schedule time with me over here. And then you get to block it off and say, I'm only doing Friday late afternoons or whatever ends up being appropriate and reasonable.
I think it could work. Some schools I know of have an office hours for guides that is like published, so parents know about it.
Oh, that's cool.
Which I can imagine you can easily include Calendly as a link, which would probably be really helpful for guides. I'm sure they would appreciate that. Similar to how our heads of schools appreciate, that quick scheduling of tours, so you don't have that back and forth.
Yeah.
But that's an idea. Consider that for sure.
Going back to what we talked about, I think last week or the week before, we could do Facebook Lives for guides too. It's kind of like an office hours, sort of, pseudo office hours online. It wouldn't be quite as personal, let's say, but you just get the opportunity to say, hey, here's what we're doing, here's what we plan on doing, and a nice quick check-in.
Right. And that kind of supports the idea of having a Facebook page or a Facebook group specifically for your classrooms.
Yes.
And email beamers, we talked about that as well in MailChimp, where you've got, a class list that's maintained, and you could just send it directly to that email beamer. So giving your guides that opportunity, they could shoot a Loom video, just, updating what's going on. Again, another engagement tool that you could use to help your new parents, feel connected to what it is that you're doing in the classroom. Because I think, new parents feel a little bit removed and, again, intimidated by what we do, because it is so very different than what they've experienced or toured. And so helping them see what we're doing in the classroom and how connected we are to what's happening in the classroom, I think is super important. That's all I got for parent nurture.
A note on that, as a parent, one of the things that I really want, that I still really want, is I want to know what I'm supposed to be doing at home that helps maintain continuity with what they're doing in the classroom. Like I went and saw student as the teacher, and I saw my son take everything that he played with, but it was really worked on, right? And he would put it back exactly the way it goes. So, his little squeegee pad goes onto this plate and put it away, and he doesn't do that at home, and it's not really enforced. It's not something that he's got like his toy box and you throw things in the toy box, and as long as they make their way into the toy box, it's fine. That to us is cleaning up his toys. But I'm watching him just like with minute detail focus on these little things, and I realize some of that's not practical at home. Some of it is, and I don't know enough about his day-to-day to know those things. And I think that there are, like verbiage usage, for instance, or protected concentration, or like at school, they've got this step stool up to the sink where he washes his own dishes. We don't do that at home either. It would be kind of cool if there was parent ed built around, hey, here's how you can reinforce the things we're teaching him at school at home. And I mean, we're not horrible people. I don't think we're bad parents, but there's not a whole lot of continuity. And so part of me feels like maybe I'm unraveling some of what's being, like you send him to Montessori school so he can become like this really awesome individual. And then you send him home and I undo a little bit of that. And so it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back every time.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that dives into, parent education and what that curriculum looks like for your school. So helping parents at an earlier stage understand how to offer choices, because that's what we're doing in the classroom.
Mm.
And the idea of offering choices is that we recognize that a child needs those choices to be able to make a successful decision, and we ultimately want them to be successful. So helping parents understand that process and why it's important to offer those choices, because the end goal, so for example, if you're trying to get out of your house, and your child takes forever to get out of the house, which I'm sure every parent has experienced, right? Especially in Minnesota, when my son this morning, especially because it's Valentine's Day, he had to grab a bunch of other stuff. He did not want to put his shoes on. And so offering a choice that leads to the end result regardless. So do you want to put your left shoe on first or your right shoe? The end goal is there. We are putting on our shoes, right? We're still going to do it. We're still going to make it happen, but at least it invites him along the process. So helping parents understand that early on, I think, is really helpful. And then you feel successful as a parent because you're supporting what's happening in the classroom, and you don't feel like you're unraveling all of those beautiful pieces that we know are happening, and you're in line with it at home as well. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I think that's a really important aspect of new parent development.
What can we do at Nido to help with that? Is there, I mean, I know we're talking about parent ed content. Is there something specific that we have in mind, or is it still a little ethereal?
Right. So we've been talking about that, right? We're trying to figure out, because we're noticing that our schools and members are experiencing this, where it's like, we get the idea of need intake, bringing in mission appropriate families, but how do we, support those newer families? So we've been talking about creating a curriculum, kind of like a Montessori 101, right? What is Montessori? And breaking it down into a series of courses that are available to parents online. Because another thing to consider is we could have a robust parent ed program, but if people don't show up, then you're missing like a bunch of opportunities to help your families understand. And it isn't always because the parent's not engaged or interested. It's just they don't have time, or the practicalities of coming to your education series is just not happening for, say, both parents are working and they have to rely on grandma to pick up. So just keeping in mind that there are other avenues that we can offer these parents, opportunities to learn. So we're hoping to create something like that. I think it is a little bit of a daunting task, but it is possible to do it. So stay tuned for that, because I think we could offer that, and it would be really helpful for our members.
Do you mind me transitioning topics just briefly, Deneen, before we run out of time?
No, that's okay. Oh yeah, we're at 30. Sure.
Well, so I just wanted to bring up that you've been doing a really good job at courting some of our guest speakers, and we've got a few in the pipeline that I'm really excited about. And I wanted to know if I can put you on the spot and if we're in a position to drop any names yet, or if we're still figuring all that out schedule-wise.
No, yeah, absolutely. So next week we're going to have one of our members that we've been working with, I believe, since the summer, and they have gone through, some transition about how to. Well, I'll say this: it's been a little bit of a rocky road figuring out marketing for them, and they stumbled across us, and we were able to help them along the process. So they're going to be on our call next week, talking about their experience. And hopefully giving us some tips of what maybe not to do, or what the process has been like, and offering us some ideas to be able to do that. So the Acton Academy crew is going to be up. They're in the DC area. So they're coming next week. And then the following week, I believe that is Peter Pichet. He's going to be on, and I don't know what we're still figuring out what we're going to talk about. I'm sure we could probably talk for hours, but we have to pick topics, so we're still doing that.
I'm so excited. He's brilliant, and he does consulting for Montessori schools, right? That's his full-time gig.
Yeah, and it's not just Montessori, but like Montessori improvement. So how can we improve your full scope at your school? So I'm excited to have him, because I think we can learn a lot from him as well. And I think our members, many of our members know him, so it'd be good to have him on.
Emily just said I'm working with him now, which is just great. Like that came full circle perfectly on this webinar.
That's right. And then there's a couple of other ones, in the pipeline right now, which I'm excited about. There's one that I'm working with that's going to be talking about diversity and inclusion, and what we can do to help diversify our Montessori community. Because we tend to reach only a certain part of the population if we're a private school. So how can we make it more of a broad focus? Because that's really where Dr. Montessori came from. He was in the slums in Italy trying to help those students. So what can we do to offer more diversity in our communities? That's one. Another one is just admissions processes, how to smooth admissions process. I've got a couple people in line for that. Yeah, we're gonna have like a really exciting guest series, which is gonna be cool.
Yeah, this whole year is gonna be awesome. I mean, not that last year wasn't, but I feel like we really kind of figured some stuff out. We've got some solid ground, so I'm really excited.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear if there's any topics that our members want to talk about. Shoot them my way, and I can see who we can find in the field to have them be a guest speaker.
Yeah. Speaking of, I'm speaking at the AMI conference on Sunday this weekend. So if you're going to be in Nolens, which I was lectured on recently, is not New Orleans. But if you're going to be at the AMI conference and you want to be bored to tears, my session is 9 a.m. on Sunday, and I'd love to see some friendly faces. Please come up and introduce yourself. And I'm also going to be there all weekend, and I'll have nothing to do and no friends. So if anybody wants to do a free consult or a review or has any questions, feel free to reach out. I'd love to sit down and meet with you and talk about your school.
Perfect. You're going to be on Facebook Live, right?
Yes, I'm going to remember to do that. Do that right now.
Yeah, that'll be a fun weekend. I'm sure a lot of people are getting ready to travel, so it'll be good. And New Orleans is a beautiful place. Make sure to get down to the French Quarter, walk around, check it out.
Yeah, I was told to get beignets. They're little donuts with frosting on them.
Oh.
It's spelled like big nets, but that's definitely not how it's pronounced.
Well, you'll learn when you're down there.
Yeah. This is from Monica at Sunstone. She's like, oh, you have to get the, but I only saw it written. She didn't tell me. So now I need to go Google how to pronounce it. Otherwise, I'm going to walk around New Orleans making a fool out of myself.
It'll be a neat cultural experience. I love it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
A lot of enthusiasm. Cool. All right.
Awesome.
Well, I think we are ready.
We did it. Live members, thank you again. As always, thank you both for showing up. Who do we have, just so I can thank you personally? We've got Emily, Beth, and Melissa. Really appreciate you taking the time out. And I know not everybody can do that, so I'm not trying to, if you're listening to the recording, I'm not trying to guilt you for not being here, but it really contributes to the conversation. So if you give me the time, your questions and your input is invaluable. We stream live on YouTube. We stream live on Facebook. We do this every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. And we just love this. This is awesome. We love everything about it. So thank you all for being here.
Perfect. All right. Well,